Hello, just a quick heads up from Editor Soul here. This is not a spoiler-free review. So going forward, I will be talking about anything and everything in regards to the story and gameplay of Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. So if you have not played it yet, make sure to play the game and get everything out of your system before you come back and watch this not spoiler-free review. Also, this is very dated because I recorded this weeks ago. I have been playing Sparking Zero with the rest of the world. Please forgive me for being late on this review. Anyway, go ahead and take it away past me. Oh, wow. All right, awesome. What's good, y'all? Saul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, at the time of this recording, it has been about a week since the official release of The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Thankfully, we didn't have to wait too long for this game. We got that direct announcing the title back in June, July-ish. I was on vacation, but I did get my reaction. If you want to see my reaction to the initial reveal trailer, I'll put it in the link. I'll put the link in the description below or something like that. But regardless, thankfully it wasn't a long wait because I was over the moon ecstatic about this game. This was easily one of my most anticipated releases of 2024. And now that I've had it, now that I've played through it, because I have beaten it, that's why we're talking about this today, because that game had me in its clutches for those past couple of days. So now we can finally sit down and talk about it. I don't know where one would place me on the spectrum of how long I've been a Zelda fan. I've liked Zelda since about very early high school when I finally got my hands on Wind Waker HD and actually played through it for the first time and actually finally understood what Zelda games were about. I tried the DS ones, Phantom Hourglass, and I didn't get to play Spirit Tracks, but I did try Phantom Hourglass, didn't like it, thought that was what Zelda worked like, never went near it again. And then I was just like, you know what, everybody talks up Wind Waker, I've got to see what the situation is here. Finally got into it and started getting into Zelda, right? And only later into my life cycle did I finally fully understand the difference between 3D Zelda games and 2D Zelda games, right? So then I was finally able to really just truly identify the difference between the two and decided to finally lock in with the important 2D games in the series. So I have played A Link to the Past, A Link's Awakening, A Link Between Worlds, Minish Cap, and so on and so forth. So don't get it twisted when I say that I was absolutely over the moon to not only hear that we were getting another new 2D entry in the Zelda series, but that we got to play as Zelda, something that we were begging for in Tears of the Kingdom because it was just such a perfect setup to be able to have her actually present for the journey this time. We didn't get that, obviously, but to get Zelda as a playable character is revolutionary for the franchise because we have never seen something like this where Link was not present for a majority of the game, and that is something extraordinary, or at least that was what was advertised to us, right? And so now here we are. We spent a good couple of days with Echoes of Wisdom, and there's just so many things that I want to say about this game. Now, of course, obviously, this is going to be something of a review for Echoes of Wisdom because I have done generally most things in the game. I've missed probably a couple heart pieces and things like that, which is something that we need to talk in depth about in of itself. But I did most things that were available in the game. It took me about, I'm gonna say roughly 20-25 hours, and yeah, we're gonna talk a bit about it, but I've organized it in the most simple way possible just so that I can organize my thoughts a little better and get them out to you guys, because I did recently upload my review to Astrobot and I noticed I was definitely a rambler. I'm probably going to put another timestamp here because I am naturally a rambler. But of course, the entire purpose of this channel is to be able to talk about what I want to talk about and talk about it in a comfortable setting so that you guys could have something in the background while you're doing your work, while you're doing your homework, while you're eating, while you're whatever. Something to drift off to maybe if you're comfortable enough with my annoying ass. That's the whole purpose here. So, but at the same time, I want to, just keep it a little organized for the reviews and stuff like that, because that's something I plan to do for the future, for the foreseeable future anyway. But that's that. So I guess that just about does it for that. I've once again spent 5 minutes rambling. Damn it! Anyway, why don't we go ahead and finally get into my official review for The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. Now, like I said, I've set it up very simply. I've set up my likes and I've set up my dislikes. Now, before we continue, I'm sure that future me or Editor Soul has put a spoiler warning at the beginning, but I'm going to warn you guys again really quick that this is not a spoiler-free review. I'm going to be talking about my experience with the game. I'm going to be talking about my likes and dislikes, things that contain spoilers, gameplay spoilers, minor story spoilers, for the most part. Some is more obvious than others, but I'm going to be talking about everything. So if that's not something that you're ready to hear right now, if you're still working on playing through the game, you want to finish it for yourself, I highly advise you to go do so. So I go ahead and do that. But again, that's the final warning. And let's go. So obviously we're going to go ahead and start with the things that I enjoyed about the games, the things that I really, really liked that they did. The most obvious first thing that I enjoyed, and I could probably talk about forever, is simply the fact that we finally actually did get to play as Zelda. Now, I don't exactly know how many times in the entirety of the franchise, for 100% fact, that we've been able to play as Zelda herself as a character, right? Outside of the spin-off games, being the Warriors games, I literally could not tell you what games we're able to physically play as Zelda herself. Which is why seeing this for the first time ever, seeing a playable Zelda, not just for a segment, not just for a section, not just for a level, being able to utilize her as the main character of the game is revolutionary, right? And the beauty of it is, they played very well into how her character works, right? Zelda has always been the magic one. There's always been the separation of the Triforce, and it's always been Ganon is power, Link is courage, and Zelda as wisdom. It plays into the title very well, Echoes of Wisdom. It's pretty on the nose. I think it's always been pretty on the nose, but now that I've played through the game, it is extremely on the nose. What a title, right? Being able to play as Zelda, but utilizing her as a mage that utilizes echoes. That's her magic. Utilizing echoes to traverse this version of Hyrule is something extraordinary, because we've always seen Zelda as this mage, this wizard type, and her getting this little rod from Tri, that little magical character. We'll talk more about Tri in a bit, but her receiving this rod and utilizing that to summon echoes and utilize those as means of attacking, defending, and traversing the world is simply brilliant, because this character is built to utilize it that way, right? But it's also showcasing, this is no weak character by any means. She can hold her own. She's taking hits, and she's not taking fall damage or anything like some characters, Link. And it's just so astounding to be able to play as her. And I'm going to make a video on this soon, but I would really love to see this implemented in the 3D games as well, because Zelda being able to hold her own is just such a fantastical thing, and it's just so much fun to not only play as Zelda herself, but the fact that you're a princess and everybody, acknowledges and respects that, or at the very least the people that are in the Hyrule Kingdom acknowledge and respect the fact that you are a princess, that you are the Princess of Hyrule. And it's just so interesting to play that role for the first time in the series. And it's just, wow. So, and I was thinking going in, before I actually played the game for myself, for a while there I was thinking, I'm like, no way they make her talk, right? She doesn't really need to, Whoa. Ouch. They don't really need to make her talk for any reason. She's a very simple character, much like Link. But this would have been a great opportunity to give us a situation in which she could have her own unique responses and things like that. And they just kind of pulled a similar thing with Link, in which she's a silent protagonist and she responds based on, what everybody else says and things like that. So that's fine. That's cool, whatever. But I definitely would have liked to see a situation in which she herself actually does talk. But hey, it is what it is. But one thing I do want to acknowledge is that it is very interesting, because we're in an era now, officially, even in the 2D games, we're not naming ourselves anymore now, right? Ever since Breath of the Wild, it's a precedent that the main character is Link. The playable character is Link. And even in this game, a 2D game, we're not naming ourselves or anything like that. We're not changing our name or anything like that. This is Zelda. And the swordsman is Link. So that is extremely interesting to me that they're just kind of locking that down and being like, nope, we're not going that, we're not taking that route anymore. These are our characters. These are who they are. There's no point in letting you name yourself. Defeats the purpose. And you know what? That's totally fine. I'm cool with that. It would have been weird to run around as Princess Schmuckleberry or whatever the hell. Who would ever name, where did Schmuckleberry come from? You're an idiot. Anyway, I'm cool with the fact that they made it so that Zelda herself is the main character, that she's a mage, that we can't change her name, and that people of Hyrule are very, very different around somebody like Zelda as opposed to Link, right? So that was a very exciting prospect. After that, of course, we have to talk a little bit about the general world itself. It is just generally so fun to explore, right? And it's really, really cool because of the echoes that you get, right? We'll get more into the echoes specifically in a bit, but having echoes that allow you to utilize to get around this world turns it into a sandbox. Or I guess rather, I said this to my friend the other day, if Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, if those are sandbox games, this is a toy box. You are able to completely bend this world to your whim based on your imagination. After you get Tri and you get your echoes, you get your first couple of echoes, you get your table, you get your beds, you get your pots, you get your vases, you get your boxes. After you've gotten that, the world is your oyster. How you traverse it is completely up to you. How you utilize your echoes to defeat enemies is completely up to you. How you get up to this little collectible here or there, or how you get to this town, or how you solve this puzzle, or how you get through this cave is completely up to you. And it's such a vast and nice little world just generally to even look at, right? Before we get into the gameplay aspects, this is a nice world to look at. You've got your 4 general regions, which have always been there. You've got your, I guess more than 4 actually, you've got like 6 now, but you've got the river, the Zora rivers and things like that. You've got the snowy peaks of Hebra, you've got the mountain with the Gorons, you've got little villages stacked around, plenty of places to explore. Of course, you got the Gerudo town, you've got Lake Hylia, and just a bunch of different general areas to explore. And it's just, when you first walk out into that open world, it is big. Like, it's like, whoa, like, okay, this is pretty cool. It's generally what you'd expect from a 2D Zelda game. It's a pretty nice sized map and things like that. I cannot remember for the life of me if it is bigger or smaller than Link's Awakening. I am pretty sure it is bigger though, considering the fact that, you know, the GBA can only hold so much, as opposed to this brand new game on a brand new engine that they could completely play around with. And they use that to its fullest potential, because there's just so many places to just look around and explore, and just so many different places that look super nice, and all of the villages and people and towns, and just so many things to do and see. And it's just it's a nice little vibe, man. It really is a nice little vibe. There's also a lot of like caves and things like that to explore. Again, it's been a while since I've played a lot of the 2D games. It's been a good minute. But to my knowledge, you didn't get like cave entrances and things like that to this extent. Like you did, but I feel like this is definitely like the most that we've gotten in terms of like, you know, all these little miniature puzzles and things like that with so many different ways to solve them. You could go through this cave and, you know, you could definitely solve it in a different way than somebody else solved it, depending on the powers and echoes that you have available and in your arsenal at that point in time. And it's just so fascinating to see how people get through specific puzzles differently. I've been watching Let's Plays here and there of people's first playthroughs of Echoes of Wisdom to see how they get through a puzzle differently than me. And seeing how they traverse the world opposed as to how I traverse the world my first time through is really something to behold. It's really something special. And I really, really enjoy that they allowed us the freedom to do something like that. I guess if we're going to get into the echoes aspect, we need to get to the purpose of why the echoes are so cool, and that is Tri, the center of the entire game. Tri is the one that allows you the power to utilize echoes. That is the thing that allows you to use the rod. It creates the rod for you so that you can utilize its power, so that you can, you know, make these copies and echoes of certain objects and enemies that you defeat, and even just like, not even like liquids and stuff like that. Being able to make water blocks, Oh my goodness, right? Now, I've heard a couple of times here and there that there's allegedly 127 echoes total throughout the game. I did not count. I could go back into my save file and count. I don't see a purpose in that though, because, you know, you're not ever going to need every single echo. There's probably not a situation in which you'll go through the game and use every single echo. You're going to have, just like, you know, any game, right? Probably, especially in a sandbox game, especially like, for example, Tears of the Kingdom, you had your method of getting around. You had your ways of doing things and things like that. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, you'll definitely find that way of utilize, like, of how to, you're going to find your way to fight enemies. You're going to find your ways to traverse. You're going to find your ways to get through puzzles and things like that in varying situations. And, you know, you're just going to have your way. And sometimes you might find an echo that allows you to do things differently. But for the most part, it is a very just, you know, very tame, like, play your way type situation. And I enjoyed that a lot. And it's good that it gives you so many options, because, wow, there's a lot of options. So I made sure, damn sure, to upgrade Tri, because thankfully there was a lot of rifts around Hyrule that allowed you to, you know, just go out of your way to max out Tri's power output and things like that, so you can utilize more echoes, so that you could utilize more of Tri's power, so that you can lessen how expensive echoes are and things like that. And it was just such a fun time. And Tri as a character in of itself is really, really fun. It's basically, you know how Zelda games go, especially earlier Zelda games, where you always had that one companion that would do pretty much all of the talking for your silent protagonist. And Tri is very unique, in which only people who have gone through the rifts can actually talk to Tri. So most of the time it's talking to Zelda, but after a certain situation has gone down, it's just kind of fun to see how Tri interacts with others. And then while, you know, some of them are talking to Tri, the others are like, what's going on? Like, it's just Zelda there. And it makes for really, really funny scenarios and things like that. So overall, Tri is a very simple character. There's nothing too much to Tri. It's not like it has like an insane personality or anything like that. Nothing too crazy, but, you know, it definitely is a magical being that is learning as it goes. And it's really fascinating to see that, because, you know, very early on in the game, it doesn't understand the term thank you. It doesn't understand what being thankful means and things like that. And it all came, you know, full circle when things were finally back to normal and Tri was saying like, oh, I get it now. I'm feeling thank you. And it literally, like, I was just like, I was over the moon. I'm like, that is a beautiful line. I'm feeling thank you. That is one of my favorite lines in the franchise now, because it's just, it really did come full circle. And I really appreciate that they did that with Tri's character, in which it's a little magical being that doesn't fully understand the basics of the world, how people feel and things like that, but it's willing to learn, and it still wants to do its best to help everybody out, especially Zelda, who, you know, became friends with it over the course of their journey. And it is truly astounding. I really appreciate Tri as a character. Hope to see it again in some way, shape, or form. We'll see what happens. Now, one of the most interesting parts about this game is the fact that, again, Link is not present for a majority of the game. The thing about this one, obviously, because you're playing as Zelda, is that Link is stuck in the rifts, right? Link basically sacrificed himself to get you out of that crystal at the beginning of the game, the very beginning of the game. And once he's in the rifts, it's all up to you, right? However, as we've seen at the beginning of the game, the rifts are making these very evil counterparts, these duplicates of every character in Hyrule. Well, not every single character, obviously, but most characters in Hyrule, and utilizing those echoes or these imposters, these doppelgangers, to do bad things, which is why Zelda has to go into hiding at first, because her dad, you know, got sucked up by the rifts and got utilized for evil when it copied his clone. So in Link's case, Link has a couple of clones around the world, and the first clone that you run into has his sword and shield, right? Now, I tried my best to avoid the trailers, so I wasn't completely understanding what was happening until I actually had it in my hand. And Link, or rather Link's sword and his shield, when Zelda grabs that, you get Link's power, but it is temporary, right? And I feel like that is just such a super subtle shift in the mindset for Zelda, right? Because we go into Zelda games like, okay, we're Link, we're a warrior, we know how to fight, everything that comes our way, we slash through it, no problem, easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Now, when you play Zelda for the first like hour or something like that, you quickly get a sense of how strong Link is. Because you're utilizing echoes, that's the only way that you can fight as Zelda. Because when you run out into an enemy, Zelda's not swinging the rod. She's not hitting these people with her rod. She's not twirling into them and dealing damage. No, you can't do that. You have to use your echoes. You have to use the enemy's power against them. And that is such an interesting concept, because now you're looking at it like, oh my gosh, like we did not know how good we had it with Link, how easy it was for him to just swat at an enemy and just be done with it. With Zelda, it takes a little more work, and that's fine, you know, it's a nice change of pace. I like it a lot. And getting Link's sword, having that very temporary power to utilize on bosses and things like that, it feels more like a crutch, and it's very important because of how limited it is that you utilize that power sparingly. Because unlike Link, you know, Zelda isn't trained in the way of the sword like that. The power that she's utilizing is borrowed. She utilizes magic so that she can embody Link for a moment, so that she can use, you know, his skill set, everything that the sword, the shield, all of these weapons have learned by working with Link for however long. That's another thing. We have no idea how long Link has been a warrior, right? I mean, we have a general idea that he got stolen away or something, came back, you know, worked with Lou Berry to get that sword going, and, you know, he got all of his items. He went on his own journey to get all of these items together, only to fight Ganon and then end up stuck in the rifts. So it's just very interesting to have that shift and to really showcase, like, wow, that changes everything. Not having his power fully at our disposal is truly something to behold, and I really appreciate them showing that. It's such a dynamic shift. I thought that was awesome. And going back to the world a little bit, there's so many fun little cute side quests for you to indulge in and things like that. Things that just really help fill out the world and also help fill out your arsenal and stuff like that. After you know, hit up a rift and things like that, there's going to be people around that are always going to be looking for your help. And it's very obvious when there's, you know, somebody that needs your help, because just like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, you'll see that little emergency, you know, exclamation point above their head that's asking for help, and you'll go into their mission. You don't know what you're gonna get, but the missions usually that you get aren't too incredibly invasive. 9 times out of 10 it would be something like, oh, I want to see this echo, or oh, can you go get this thing for me, or oh, can you show me this, or whatever. And it was just, you know, it was just different variations of that depending on the people that you're talking to, or the, you know, the Gerudo or the Dekus or the Gorons or whatever. But they were all very cute and not too invasive, so it was very fun to see a lot of these side quests, especially when some of the rewards were actually super good, like getting entire outfits and things like that, getting little pins and accessories that you could utilize to help, you know, you and your journey. I can't remember where I got the jump pin from, I for the life of me, but I never took that pin off. Once I was able to jump higher as Zelda herself, that was it. I never took that pin off. And then I found the Great Fairy, and I made sure that I had plenty of money so that when she was helping me upgrade, I was able to get all those upgrades as soon as possible. Man, I was making sure of it. So yeah, I think that they did a pretty solid job in terms of how side quests work and things like that. Pretty okay job. We'll get back to this for sure, but I really do like how they utilize side quests to help fill out the world, and, you know, incentivize you to go out, go to little different dungeons. Hell, they even had like very specific like mini bosses and things like that for these side quests, like a whole boss developed specifically for a side quest. That's awesome. That's the kind of thing that I like to see. I do wish there was more, but I'm happy with the little bit that we did get. So I'm rocking with it. And then, of course, the story in of itself is pretty simple, but I think it did its job. It did exactly what it needed to do. It was a fun little, I mean, cute is kind of a weird way to say it when, you know, when you think back to the beginning where Zelda's dad's Echo, where the King of Hyrule was just like, put my daughter to death. That's insane work for them to do. But you know, obviously that was never going to happen. And, you know, it was such a nice little simple story in which, you know, obviously these rifts are causing problems. You know, Zelda is obviously the one that is able to handle it because she has Tri and the Tri Rod at her side. Tri is a specifically developed magical being from the goddesses to help, you know, stop Null, a being of pure just despair and things like that. I assume like another variation of Ganon, but at the same time, Ganon was present. It had echoes of Ganon. I'm very confused about that, but for the most part, the story did what it needed to do, and I messed with it very heavy. I was very appreciative of that story, and, you know, I was invested enough to want to continue the story to see how things play out, right? So I was in there. I really liked it a lot, and I think it really helped pull everything together. It made for a nice little ending, you know, something very simple. It wasn't too crazy or anything like that, but, you know, for a 2D Zelda game, I think that's perfect for what it is. So I mess with the story. Not the strongest thing of all time, of course, but very simple enough to be able to be like, okay, all right, I could definitely see myself jumping back into this again every now and again just to indulge in that little story. It's very cute. I love it a lot. So yeah, that just about does it for my likes. Now we move on to my dislikes. My first problem, right from the get-go, was the very inconsistent frame rate. They probably should have locked it at like 30 frames or something like that so that it wasn't consistently dropping. It wasn't as noticeable the farther I got into the game. I definitely, like, if it did happen, I stopped paying as much attention. But, like, very early on in the game, you could tell, like, Hyrule Town, or, was it Hyrule Town? I guess it was Hyrule Town. The first town that you're in, the frame drops were extremely disorienting, and it did get a little irritating at first, but once I really got into the game, I was like, oh, I completely forgot about the frame drops, and I have to look back at the footage. I can't think or remember of another single time where I saw massive frame rate drops, even when I was doing a lot, even when there was a lot of enemies on screen. So it was just kind of an early problem, so it wasn't anything too crazy, but I feel like that easily could have been touched up just a little bit if they locked it at 30, or if they just cleaned it up a little bit so that it was running, you know, consistently at 60. But it is what it is. It wasn't too invasive. Again, it was usually like a very early on problem, something that you notice very early on. The farther I got in, the less I paid attention to it, and if it did happen again, didn't even notice. So that's fine. I can live with that. Another one of my problems is definitely the fact that the smoothies are the, like, majority of the collectibles. Like, everything that you get in this game pretty much go back to smoothies, and it's like, okay, I mean, cool and all, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more. You know, it's kind of annoying to go through this like awesome little side quest or through this cool little cave only to get like floral nectars or like a bundle of grapes or something like that. Like, come on, I just went through an entire side quest. You can't give me something better, like, I don't know, even more heart pieces or something. Like, I'm thinking I might get a heart piece or something out of that, but to go back only to, after a long hard battle, just to get a cactus. Like, I mean, the smoothies are helpful, don't get me wrong, but they're kind of busted. Like, we're kind of suffering from the same situation that we had with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, in which being able to pause and use the food that you made is pretty overpowered, right? Like, I get the sentiment, I get the idea, it's a very, like, clutch thing to be able to do, but it kind of, you know, takes away from the immersion of a little bit when you're in the middle of a really tough battle, you're about to die, and I could just drink one of the 20 smoothies. It doesn't even, there's no like upgrades for your bag, how many smoothies you can hold or anything like that, which I would have been totally fine with. It's just like you're locked in at like, I think like 20 to 25 smoothies slots or something like that, which is insane because the amount of recipes that you get right from the get-go, you could make a bunch of smoothies off rip easy. Like, it was literally never an issue. So I don't know, I thought it was just a little more on the annoying side that most of the rewards were like recipe stuff and things like that. You would occasionally get the heart piece, you would occasionally get like a fairy bottle. Of course, there's only like 4 in the entire game, so that kind of ran out pretty quick. So eventually, after I got a majority of the heart pieces and I got a majority of the upgrades and costumes and whatever else, most of the collectibles were either rupees or smoothie stuff. And that was, you know, it definitely doesn't incentivize you as much to go out of your way to explore when you know that's all you're getting. So by the end of it, I was just like, okay, I think I've gotten a majority of the important stuff. I can't think of any side quests that I've missed, and even if I did, I already got everything I need. It's probably just going to be smoothie stuff, so it's probably not going to be all that, important. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue with the story. And that's kind of a sucky way to think, I think, right? Because, I love getting invested in worlds. I love indulging in side quests and things like that, knowing not only am I, helping these people and things like that, but I'm also, as my character's getting something out of it. And when all I'm getting is smoothie recipes for things that I already have been collecting in the overworld in abundance, I'm not as incentivized. Maybe if the ingredients that we're getting were more rare, if you go out of your way to do specific side quests and you get super rare ingredients, then that's one way to incentivize me, because I might be able to make a smoothie that could complete another side quest or something along those lines. But it was never like that. Everything that you would get from side quests and things that you would get from chests and stuff, you could just generally find in the overworld one way or another anyway. So it was never all that crazy, but I guess it is what it is on that front. Now, one of the mechanics that I didn't talk much about earlier on, which I do think is cool, is the bind ability, in which you're basically pulling a what is the arm thing from Tears of the Kingdom? Why am I forgetting that? Whatever, it doesn't matter. You get what I'm getting at. You basically use that ability to bind yourself with a specific object in the overworld, and you're able to utilize that to move that object out of the way, or push it or pull it or whatever, so that you can utilize that to probably do whatever you're doing, essentially. However, there is another mechanic, which is the reverse or follow. And that essentially is where you just connect yourself, you bind yourself to a specific object, and if it moves, you can follow that object, and you just kind of sit there and float while the object does its thing, and you use that to its, best ability. Now, I personally used the reverse and follow maybe 2 or 3 times. That was it. I used it to get 1 heart piece. I used it to get that. It was that first area, the tutorial area where it shows you how to use the reverse. Other than that, I almost never used the reverse. Now, maybe it's just because I personally didn't find a lot of situations in which that was very useful, because again, I was getting a lot of echoes really fast, so I was able to traverse at my own pace and utilize every echo or whatever. Like, I was just figuring things out my own way without utilizing that. But I feel like they could have easily put in a lot more situations in which we could have found the follow mechanic a little more useful, and we could have, really put that to the test. Kind of sucks that they didn't, but I digress. It is what it is. That mechanic isn't as strong as I would have liked it to be, and I guess it is what it is. Not really much you could do about that, but oh well. I do wish it was a stronger mechanic. I don't know if I would consider this like a big, major, overall, whatever complaint, but I do think it was very strange to not have like a true like final dungeon. It's cool that, in a 2D Zelda, it was very kind of a nice change of pace to go back to like actual dungeons and things like that. We were actually going through all of these different like well thought out dungeons, and they were really they were big. Like, these were big dungeons, we were going through super long. It would take at least like 20 to 30 minutes to get through a dungeon, because there was just so many different things, so many ways to explore it, and there was just so many pathways and things you could take, and some rather than others. In the Deku dungeon, there was just so many entrances, there were so many ways to get around, that I was overwhelmed for a minute there. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like a lot here. And so I was finding my, different ways through, and eventually got through it. And that was really cool. I like the dungeon layouts in this game, because it was a good balance between, us having the freedom to find, solve things our own way, but there were very specific ways, there were specific things that needed to be done to solve the dungeon. So I feel like, unlike Tears of the Kingdom, it was a much better balance. However, we did have a good few dungeons. I'm not complaining about the amount of dungeons that we had. I think for this game, I think it was pretty solid. However, it was very strange to me that there was no like real final dungeon. Like, you're about to, you're heading into the final battle with Link and everything after he's gotten his stuff back, and I feel like they gave us a little bit of a glimpse of what a final dungeon could have looked like, but they never capitalized on that. It was pretty much just a hallway, right? You go through this little hallway with Link, and then, there's one point where he doesn't know what to do from the other room. You could see the entire room, so you have an idea of how to help him. I think I cheated. I don't know if I was supposed to do what I did, but it worked, so I'm not complaining about it. But regardless, we only got a glimpse of what that could have been, and I feel like that was kind of a wasted opportunity to not have this like co-op double dungeon with AI Link to see what he would do and how we would play support for him, right? I feel like they could have easily done something like that, and I don't know, it's just a little sad that we didn't get like a fully realized final dungeon. We just kind of got a little bit of a hallway, and then we went just right into battle. So I don't know, I think I have to sit with that a little bit more, but as of now I'm thinking, I don't know, it's kind of bummy that we didn't get a real final dungeon, but whatever, we did get a lot of overworld and other dungeons, so I could live without it, I guess. Now the last two things here kind of go hand in hand because it is all just post-game stuff, but the fact that there is no post-game, again, not a big deal. Most Zelda games don't. I don't think there is a single Zelda game that has real post-game anyway, so it's not the craziest thing to not have that, but you know, for the amount of time that I spent, and you know, spending full price on a game nowadays, you kind of want to get a bang for your buck. If I'm spending the same amount on this as I am on other AAA titles, you know, I feel like they could have gone the extra mile, which is why it is also shocking to me that we didn't get any kind of like hero mode or like, whoa, hey, Future Soul here just to actually correct something here. There actually is a hero mode within Echoes of Wisdom. I just simply did not notice that there was an option to select that. Otherwise, I definitely would have tried it out. Anyhow, just wanted to correct that tidbit of misinformation. Go ahead and run it back, Soul. Regal mode or, you know, Queen mode or something like that, so that we could go through it at a much tougher rate. You know, things are more expensive to utilize, or echoes are more expensive to utilize. We take more damage. We could have had something like that, but we don't. You just finish the game and that's kind of it, you know, and that's I don't know how I feel about that yet. I do kind of have to sit on it, but again, it's definitely like first impressions. I'm like, dang, nothing. Like, this can't be the second Zelda game in which we don't have any kind of hero mode. We don't have any kind of difficulty spike that we could change it to, any difficulty settings. It was very strange to me that we didn't get that. I guess it is what it is. It's a little disappointing. I can't really lie about that, but what can you do? Overall, though, I think this was a very, very solid take on Zelda as a main character. I think this was a very solid entry into not only the Zelda franchise, but specifically the 2D Zelda entries, and it's definitely up there with my favorites for sure. Is in terms of Zelda games, it's definitely maybe close to 2 as my favorite, because I think Link Between Worlds is probably still my favorite, but this is a close second, but I gotta sit with it a little longer. However, there's just so many concepts and ideas and executions that I really liked in this game that I feel would be so awesome going forward with the Zelda franchise, and I could really see them utilizing that and taking full advantage of these ideas going into the next couple of Zelda games. And it just makes me happy that a 2D Zelda game could be this fresh and just so whimsical and fun. The music was super nice, the world and things like that was just so fun to explore. Being able to play the game at my own pace in my own way was so refreshing, because, you know, I'll definitely show some gameplay here and there. I'm not the smartest Zelda player, okay? I definitely had moments in plenty of Zelda games where I'm just like, all right, what do I do here? You know, I've had my moments, you know. I didn't have as many moments with this one. Actually, I didn't have any moments with this one like that, because the game wasn't insanely challenging in a way where it was impossible for me to figure out what to do or anything like that. It was definitely very easy for me to figure out my own way to get around a specific like dungeon or a specific trial or puzzle or whatever, and it was really refreshing. It was so like, you know, I had my heart set on beating this game without getting any real help from any kind of internet or anything like that. I wanted to completely avoid that, and I actually managed to do that. I managed to completely avoid spoilers. I managed to completely avoid getting any unnecessary help or an outside help, because I was able to play my own way. I was able to go out of my own way, explore the way I wanted to, get around and fight the way that I wanted to, and it was nice. It was nice to be able to have this playground, this powerhouse in my hands, to be able to do what I wanted as Zelda. And it was refreshing. It was a good time, and I really appreciate that they allowed me the ability and the time and the power to do something like that. Overall, I really think that Echoes of Wisdom deserves its, you know, its recognition. It's 8s, 9s, 10s out of 10s. It was a super fun game, super whimsical, super fun, super cute and adorable, and I could definitely see myself coming back to it time and time again to just kind of jump in and just have a mindless little playthrough every now and again, just to have fun and do my own thing, maybe solve different puzzles different ways and things like that. So we'll have to see what the future brings with that one. But I really did have a good time, and I really hope that, you know, we see more stuff like this in the future, whether it be with 2D Zelda, 3D Zelda, just Zelda in general, because this game definitely solidified itself as a solid Zelda game, and I would really like to see what they do with it going forward. But, you know, well, we'll see how things play out. So that just about does it for this one, but don't think I'm done talking about Echoes of Wisdom just yet. I've got a couple of videos on this. I've recorded my entire playthrough pretty much, so I've got a lot of opinions and ideas that I want to talk about in regards to this game and how it could work, or what it's done better and what it's done worse than other games and things like that. And so there's just a lot that I want to talk about in regards to this game. So this isn't the end of, you know, my Echoes of Wisdom thoughts and things like that. So we'll definitely get back to it one day, probably very soon, most likely even this week. We'll see what happens, but I've rambled on enough, so the mic is going over in your direction, and I would like to hear what you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Did you enjoy Echoes of Wisdom? Are you in the middle of enjoying it right now? You just wanted to hear me ramble a little bit? Do you like the way that this game has gone in its direction? Do you enjoy the game's direction, or are you completely opposed to this game? This is not a good 2D Zelda game to you. You thought it was absolutely ridiculous, and you never want to see anything like it or anything related to it ever again. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, yeah, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed it. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone, so thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.